Isn't it always nice when a movie that was barely talked about at first winds up being one of the biggest movies of the year so far? It's funny how that works out. Bad Education stars Hugh Jackman as Frank Tassone, the superintendent of a New York school district who's beloved by nearly everyone. And everything seems perfect in his world until an article for the school newspaper begins raising questions about the school budget. And as answers are uncovered, it leads to the discovery of a much bigger scandal, one that he plays a big part in. I originally didn't think much about this movie, to be perfectly honest, even though I did hear some good things about it coming out of TIFF last year. It got picked up by HBO for a spring release, and I thought it would be one of those movies that would come and go without much thought. However, with the world being what it currently is, it went from being one of the year's potentially most overlooked movies to one of the biggest movies of the spring, since, there aren't that many big movies to talk about at the moment. So I think this worked to the movie's advantage. And I'm glad it did. This is a really well-made movie, and it's anchored by some excellent performances. I kinda underestimated the movie itself, despite the cast, which, I don't know how. Because Hugh Jackman is one of my favorite actors currently in the business. I don't know if anyone will be able to top him as Wolverine, and movies like The Prestige and Prisoners are some of my favorites from the last 20 years or so, and that's mainly thanks to him. And this just might be one of his best performances. He is instantly charming as this beloved superintendent. He comes in, everyone greets him with such enthusiasm, students adore him, the staff takes him at his every word. The charisma just oozes off of him from within the first few minutes of meeting him, and you find yourself just as mesmerized by him as everyone else is. A lot of this movie is carried by his performance. When it feels like his world is coming apart and he's trying to play damage control, he tries to use his likable personality to his advantage, sometimes through manipulation. He has two totally different sides to him, and as a result, it's like he's giving two totally different performances in the same movie as the same character. You can feel the tension mounting in each scene because he comes off like this likable guy and you want to believe what he says, and you find yourself falling for any ruse he might have up his sleeve, which I think speaks to one of the movie's overall messages, which is how people tend to look the other way at times in order to reconcile when someone they look up to does something or says something horrible. You see, nearly every character is adored at the beginning of this movie, yet a few are confronted at various points with something bad they've done, and the characters initiating the conversation are presented with a choice. Should I do the right thing and hold these people accountable, or should I preserve this image and let this one bad thing go and potentially put my own well-being on the line? And we see that all the time in real life. And I say that even though this was based on a true story. Powerful people who were once beloved say something offensive or do something outright unforgivable, yet you have people trying to reconcile that public persona with the terrible things said or done. Though in this instance, the results of these moral arguments have a direct effect on the other characters. So there's a lot at stake for everyone, and it makes for some really suspenseful moments. The rest of the cast is fantastic. Geraldine Viswanathan, who plays the student on the school newspaper who is investigating the story, she is wonderful as she begins to put the pieces together and is persistent even when she's told to let things go. Allison Janney and Ray Romano were both also a lot of fun to watch. They brought a lot of humor to this, and that's something I wasn't expecting so much. This is a lot funnier than I thought it was going to be. There are a lot of scathing insults, bitter exchanges, and moments of pure sarcasm weaved in through these moments of suspense. And sometimes it's used to create tension as characters will crack jokes to try to wiggle their way out of a situation. You can feel it with almost every line of dialogue delivered, and that's thanks to Cory Finley's direction. His last film was another dark comedy, Thoroughbreds, which was pretty good, but the one thing that both movies have in common is that they take humor and use it to create some really suspenseful moments. So I'm looking forward to what else he has to offer in the future. Though the writing also can't be left out, this was written by Mike Makowski, who was a student at this particular school when the scandal first broke out. And one of the other big themes brought up is the issues with the school system itself, and the kind of circumstances that would lead the people to do what they do here. Now, he doesn't exonerate them or justify any of their actions, but he allows us to at least understand what they're going through, and make us see some of the unfair situations they can be placed in, and it makes their arcs much more compelling. Though, like I said, at the same time, they're not given a pass. His writing leads to a mostly quick pace, and for the most part, the movie keeps building on the rising tension from the previous scene, and you're invested nearly the entire time. My only major issue is that it's not necessarily the case for the entire movie, especially in the beginning and a few moments in the middle. There are a few moments that are meant to explore the characters' lives outside the school, and you don't really know where the movie's going with these. They kind of throw off the pacing because they don't hook you in as immediately as the rest of the movie does. There's a little bit of a disconnect between these scenes and everything else. I get the idea was to show the other side of these characters who otherwise seem perfect. It's just not clear what these scenes have to do with anything. entertaining. Other than that, nothing major that I had an issue with. I enjoyed this movie. It has a lot to say, exploring themes that are still very relevant today. The writing is phenomenal, mixing both humor and suspense to give us a consistently engaging movie. Plus, it's anchored by a great cast, in particular Hugh Jackman, who gives easily one of his best performances to date. Definitely something you don't want to miss. Bad Education gets an 8.5 out of 10. It's on HBO. If you have it, I highly suggest checking it out. Despite there not being that many big movies out at the moment, we're still getting some really quality stuff that deserves some much needed attention. So let me know, did you see Bad Education, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you find it suspenseful? Did you enjoy the performances? And what's one of your favorite Hugh Jackman movies, if you have one? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you like what you see, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.